if you feel frustrated because you can't find a good focus for your research, if you keep going around in circles when doing your literature review, or if you feel that your dissertation lacks a clear direction, then this video is for you. Watch this video if you want to understand what research is really about and learn how to avoid the single most important mistake students make that affects their dissertation grade. I am Dr. 𝗥𝗘𝗦𝗢𝗘𝗦. I am the founder and chief content developer of the Dissertation Academy. And here in the Academy, we are all about bringing you unique tips and tools to help you write a better dissertation. In this video, I'm going to share what I call the 3 pillars of research. And after watching this video, you will be in a position to do a couple of simple tests on your title to check how good it is. And if it's still not good enough, it will show you what you need to do to improve it. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe it, as this will help the channel to grow. So let's learn about the 3 pillars. Before I move on to explain the 3 pillars, I would like you to write down your current title. It doesn't matter if you're close to submission or at an early stage. I just want you to write down the title that currently reflects your research topic. I am asking you to do this because at the end I want you to apply the 3 pillars to your own title. This will allow you to check whether you are making the main mistake that students do and that affects their dissertation grade. Feel free to pause this video while you write down your title. Let me explain how the 3 pillars came into existence. A few years ago I had a very committed student, let's call him John, who struggled to define the scope of his study. Despite my best efforts to help him, he was going round in circles without being able to clearly define the scope of his study. After 3 or 4 months, he comes into a meeting, sits down, and tells me that he finally got it. The initial title that he struggled with so much was Social Media in Festivals. At that meeting, he told me that his dissertation was going to be on customer engagement. And I said to myself, this shift from social media in festivals to customer engagement changed the entire course of his dissertation. And at the end of this video, you will be able to understand what was wrong with his initial title and why the second title is a much better one. So watch this video until the end. I am pleased to say that in the end he still did really well, and this was only possible because halfway he realized what research was really about. Instead of going around in circles, he could focus all his energy and hard work into addressing the essence of the research. That experience got me quite frustrated, and I spent some time thinking about how could I help students understand what research is really about. When you deal with complex issues, and defining the scope of your research is no easy task, the best way to deal with it is to break down the problem into smaller parts. The student was not focusing on the right issues, so my efforts centered on identifying the main components of a research project. I reviewed dissertations, research papers, and I even remember the conversation I had with one of my PhD supervisors. After much reflection, I arrived at the conclusion that a research project has got 3 components: process, content, and context. I call these pillars as it better reflects the foundational basis of these 3 components. Any research results from the intersection between these 3 pillars. But as you will learn in this video, 2 of these are what research is really about. I've presented the 3 pillars in countries like Brazil, Spain, Portugal, and obviously the UK, and feedback has been very positive, so I decided to record this video so that you can also benefit from it. Enough of introductions, time to look at each pillar in some detail. Process refers to the how and is the essence of the research. There are actually 2 types of processes, generic and specific. But in this video, I'm going to cover only generic processes. Process refers to the broadest element of the research. And in social science, there are various types of processes. In this presentation, I'm going to explain 2 of these generic processes. Examining the relationship between variables and how individuals perceive something, such as an object or a behavior. So let's look at examples related to each of the two generic processes. Can you identify the variables in the first example? The two variables are specialization and constraints. In this instance, the student was trying to understand the constraints to attend salsa dancing events across salsa dancing specialization levels. What about the second example? Can you identify the variables? In this example, the relationship is between one variable, conspicuous consumption, and three variables, public self-consciousness, materialism, and self-esteem. What about examples related to perceptions? These are quite straightforward because in both cases the word perceived features in the title. The first example focuses on the perceptions about cooperation, and more specifically the advantages and disadvantages of cooperation, while the second one focuses on the perceptions about high-end car brands. So why is process important? Process is important because your research is expected to apply the principles related to each of the processes. If your research is about examining the relationship between two variables, then your research needs to apply the principles related to researching the relationship between variables. Let's move to the second pillar, content. Content refers to the what in a research project. Process expressions do not tend to clarify the what perceptions will be examined, what variables will be related. So when we look at the what, we look at defining these elements of the research. Dissertation and thesis titles tend to define content at two levels, at the model level or at the variable level. Time to look at some examples to help you understand what the content is all about. One option is to refer to the name of the model in the title of your dissertation. Can you identify the model in the example? It's pretty straightforward. It's the prestige motivation model. From here, it's also possible to identify the variable that the model refers to, which is prestige motivation. Even though this is not always the case, in this instance, the name of the model refers to the name of the variable. Sometimes the topic is defined at the variable level. Can you identify what the content element is for this example? As a reminder, content is about the what. In this example, the variable of interest to the student was personality. The student chose not to refer to the exact personality model in the title. That is clarified inside the dissertation. Let's look at the third pillar, context. Context refers to the areas in which you are going to apply process and content. There are 6 context areas, and these apply well to dissertations in the fields of business, advertising, marketing, tourism, hospitality, retail, leisure, sports, and events. In this video, I'm going to focus on 2 of these context elements, technology and product or product category. Examples of technologies include social media, self-service kiosks, tablets, and digital cameras. Examples of products or product categories include hostels, sports cars, amusement parks, and cheese. In this instance, a particular form of cheese, mozzarella. So sometimes a researcher may want to focus on a specific product, such as mozzarella, or on the respective product category, in this instance, cheese. Most studies use more than one type of context, and we will see that in action when we revisit the initial and final titles of John's dissertation. Now that you've learned about the 3 pillars of research, it's time to find out what is the main mistake you should avoid. The 3 pillars are not all of the same nature. Process and content refer to the theoretical boundaries and are the essence of the research. Context, on the other hand, are the areas in which you chose to research process and content. So the main mistake you can make is to look at the dissertation from a context perspective. From my experience of supervising and assessing hundreds of dissertations, students who approach the dissertation from a context perspective either overlook process and content or emphasize context too much at the expense of process and content. However, these are the essence of the research, and therefore a better approach reverses the angle and looks at the dissertation from a process and content perspective, using context as a suitable setting to research process and content. Many times, students will start their dissertation from a context perspective, which is fine, as long as throughout the research they shift the emphasis towards process and content. By the way, are you starting your dissertation and want to know where research ideas come from? Check the video on starting your dissertation, whose link appears in the card at the top of the screen. Time to look at the tests that you can do based on the 3 pillars of research that allow you to check how good your title is. We can actually do 2 tests. The first one identifies the process and content elements in your title. I call these the pro-code test. Can you identify these in your working title? Does your title pass the pro-code test? The second test is the no context test. I use this test a lot with my own students and actually with other students as well who come to me when they are stuck with their dissertation. The test is actually quite simple. As the name says, you remove the context elements from your dissertation title and analyze what is left. If the title still makes sense, then you've got a good title. If it doesn't, then you need to work more on it. Before you apply the no context test to your working title, let's apply it to John's 2 titles that we looked at the beginning of this video. In the first title, there are 2 context elements: social media, which is a technology, and festivals, which is a product category. If we remove these, well, nothing is left. There's no process, no content, it's only context. And therefore it's not a good title. And no wonder the students struggled so much with it. There was no direction. If we look at his final title, we also have 2 context elements: Glastonbury, which is a product, and social networking pages, which is a technology. Again, if we remove these, we are still left with a good understanding about the focus of the research. From a theory perspective, we know that the study is on customer engagement. We don't know in which context customer engagement is being examined, but there is enough meaning left in the title that we can use to identify what the research is about. Now you can do the same tests on your title. Does it pass the no context test? Can you identify the process and the content elements? Let me know in the comments how your tests go. And I would really welcome your views on the 3 pillars. Did you find them useful? Maybe it has reassured you that you've potentially got a good title, or maybe it has helped you to see how you can improve your title and therefore your dissertation. If you want to know more about how to write great dissertations, tap the screen on the right-hand side for more videos, and check the description below for videos related to the 3 pillars. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to the Dissertation Academy channel, as this will help the channel to grow. That's all for now. See you in the next video.